Bargaining agreement is under discussion right now between the league and their players. And before the game, the players came out without their warm-ups on with shirts that said, "Pay us what you owe us."
Us getting paid our worth, period. Like, yeah. Because you're doing exactly what LeBron is doing, so what's...
T-shirts saying, "Pay us what you owe us." Be careful there, ladies. Be careful what you wish for, because the WNBA loses $40 million a year.
We're not asking to get paid what the men get paid. We're asking to get paid the same percentage of revenue shared.
Now they're coming out here saying that they want a bunch more money. For what? Like, you're not going to be drawing any money. The only reason you exist is because Adam Silver and the NBA has continued to allow it to happen.
With the first pick in the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa.
Unless you live in an Amish village, you have likely heard about the heated debate regarding WNBA salaries that was reignited at the 2025 WNBA All-Star Game. A lot of opinions have been shared, but it seems like most people haven't looked into the contracts and actually found the details required to make a thorough analysis within the context of the situation. So we're going to take a look at both collective bargaining agreements for the two leagues and see if there's any justification behind the requests for a new CBA. Let's start by trying to understand how athletes' salaries are determined.
We got, what's going to be crazy, we got 3 NBA players, I think, 3 or 4, making $60 million a year. Mm-hmm. In the next 5 years, we're going to have guys making 70, 80, 90
Luka will probably be first.
It's going to be crazy.
80 a year, Chuck.
Yeah, 80 a year to play basketball.
The most important thing to consider when discussing athletes' salaries is the salary cap. Every league has a salary cap restricting teams on just how much they can pay all of their players. The WNBA's salary cap for its current season is about $1.5 million, and for the NBA's upcoming season, their salary cap is about $154 million. Now this comparison is useless and it's not worth making, even though people always bring this up. They are completely different leagues with completely different circumstances. I just wanted to give an example of their salary caps. Since both leagues have salary caps, but they're determined in very different ways, let's go right to the source documents, the collective bargaining agreements, and see just how each salary cap is calculated. Just a warning, while reviewing these CBAs, we'll be doing a lot of math, especially for the WNBA, and if you're not interested in that level of detail, you can skip to this timestamp. According to the NBA's collective bargaining agreement, their salary cap is calculated using a percentage of the basketball-related income that's projected for that season. So at the beginning of the season, or before the beginning of the season, the NBA and the NBA Players Association come together and determine a projected basketball-related income total, and that total is then split up evenly amongst the league and the players. Then that player's share is divided up amongst the 30 NBA teams, and that's the salary cap that each team must stick to. Now you're probably wondering, since they used a projected basketball-related income, what if that projection is wrong? Well, the league took that into consideration by creating a 10% escrow account that takes 10% of every NBA player's salary and puts them into this account that they use at the end of the year to make up for any difference. Now let's go through an example to see how that works. So if we have a projected BRI of $15 billion at the beginning of the season, we can easily calculate the player's share of that projected BRI. So 15 billion times 50% gives us 7.5 billion as the player's share that year. Then when you withhold the 10% escrow account, you're withholding $750 million. Now we can move on to calculating the salary cap. If the player's share of the projected BRI for the season is 7.5 billion, and we just disperse that among the 30 NBA teams, that gives us a salary cap of $250 million per team. Since the NBA players' salaries are determined directly as a percentage of basketball-related income, their salaries have been rising just as fast as the revenue. In this offseason, we just had 3 players sign contracts that will have them earning over $70 million a year for the first time in NBA history. And those 3 players are the reigning regular season and finals MVP, SGA, Damian Lillard, and Devin Booker. Then let's say we find out, once the season is over, that the actual BRI was $14 billion instead of the projected $15 billion. Per the CBA, the NBA players eat 60.5% of the $1 billion difference, and that difference is taken from the escrow account, which means we take 60.5% of the $1 billion difference, which gives us a $605 million decrease from the escrow account. And since we've already taken $750 million in the escrow account, there's enough there to cover this difference. Now, if there wasn't enough in the escrow account to cover the difference, the players' salaries could be decreased further.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
There's one important rule within the NBA CBA, and that's that the league's share of the revenue has to stay between 49 and 51%. So regardless, if the actual basketball-related income is much lower than projected, the NBA players will only eat the loss up until their share of the revenue hits 49%. It can't go any lower than that. So they have that guarantee that they will receive at least 49% of the revenue. Another thing I noticed in the NBA CBA is that their definition of the basketball-related income seems pretty straightforward. It's just basketball-related income. It doesn't include anything like fines and team expansions and interest income, just things you would expect them not to include. It seems pretty intuitive that basketball-related income would mean, ticket sales, merchandise sales, and TV revenue, other broadcast deals. It seems like it's just common sense, and that's very different from the WNBA's agreement.
Some breaking news. The WNBA, we're so thrilled to announce the WNBA and the Players Association led by NECA. We've announced a long-term collective bargaining agreement that we've agreed to 8 years.
In all likelihood, most people who comment on the WNBA salary issue haven't even read the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement.
I can read it right, I just don't like to read it right.
According to the WNBA CBA, their salary cap is actually a lot more simple than the NBA's. And that's a bad thing. Their current salary cap is just a fixed number that was agreed upon when they negotiated the CBA, and every year has its assigned salary cap. But there's no revenue sharing, it's just a fixed number that the players agreed on. Now, if the WNBA actually meets the requirements to activate their revenue sharing, then the calculation for salary cap becomes much more complicated.
Now it's time for you to put your thinking cap on.
There are essentially 3 key terms that you need to know about when discussing the WNBA's revenue sharing calculation. And the first key term is cumulative league revenue. And all that means is the total league revenue that you take when you calculate the sum of all the years since the start of the CBA. And since the CBA started in 2020, you'd be adding up all the years going back to 2020 if you're calculating this year's cumulative league revenue. Then you have the cumulative revenue target, which is kind of just like the previous term. You're taking all the revenue targets from previous years and adding them up and creating a cumulative revenue target. Each year's cumulative revenue target is calculated by applying an annual compound 20% increase to the 2019 league revenue.
Why don't you explain this to me like I'm 5?
This just means you take the 2019 league revenue, multiply it by 120%, then the next year you multiply that total by 120%, and so on and so forth. Lastly, you have your cumulative overage, which is actually the difference between your cumulative revenue target and your cumulative league revenue. Now, this calculation is pretty complex relative to the NBA salary calculation, so the example we go through is going to have to be more in depth and involve a lot of numbers, so stick with me. Alright, so let's say we know the WNBA's revenue for 3 years, in 2020, 2021, and 2022. And let's say those revenues were 15 million, 17 million, and 18 million respectively. That would give us a cumulative league revenue in 2022 of $50 million, since we just add up all the cumulative revenue from the past years and the current year. Since the CBA started in 2020, that's as far back as we need to go for this calculation. However, when you're doing the calculation for the cumulative revenue target, you will need the revenue for 2019 as well, since you use that revenue to calculate the target revenue for 2020. Then once you have the target revenue for 2020, you just use that number to calculate all the target revenues for the following years. So for 2020, we have a target revenue of 12 million. For 2021, we have a target revenue of 26.4 million, which is just the 12 million from 2020 plus the 14.4 million that you get when you multiply 12 by 120%. Then you do the same for 2022, and you have the 12 million from 2020 plus the 14.4 million from 2021 plus the 17.28 million that you get when you multiply 14.4 million by 120%. That gives you a cumulative revenue target for 2022 of 43.68 million. The WNBA's CBA is clearly focused on consistent growth. Every metric they're measuring is just cumulative. Everything has to be taking the previous years into consideration. It can't just be one good year and then you're splitting that revenue with the players and then the owners are back eating the loss by themselves the next year. So their current agreement is based all around growth, and that makes sense. Now, since we have both our cumulative league target and our cumulative league revenue, we can calculate our cumulative overage for 2022. So we take that 50 million and subtract it by 43.68 million to get our cumulative overage for 2022 of $6.32 million. But once you have your cumulative overage, you're still not done with your calculation. You then would have to take the prior overage, which is the previous year's cumulative overage, if there was one, and subtract that from this year's cumulative overage. And then the remainder is called the net overage. So let's say we had a prior overage of $3 million. That means we can calculate our net overage by taking the 6.32 million that we got and subtracting $3 million from it, which leaves us with a net overage for 2022 of $3.32 million. And that's your salary cap. I lied. You're still not done with your calculation. You have to take that net overage and subtract 30% for deemed cost of revenue. Then the remaining 70% is your shared revenue total. And from that total, the WNBA players would receive 25% directly to their salaries and another 25% as marketing opportunities for the players. So in conclusion, it seems like the main differences between the WNBA CBA and the NBA CBA is that the NBA has a guaranteed percentage of the revenue between 49 and 51%, and their shared revenue is actually basketball related income. It's actual basketball revenue, not a number that's been deducted from endlessly to reach something that doesn't really resemble revenue. In the WNBA's case, they don't have any guaranteed percentage of revenue. They don't even have revenue sharing at the moment. And it seems like their shared revenue total is actually a much smaller number than revenue.
We should be paid more, and hopefully that's the case moving forward as the league continues to grow. I think that's something that's probably the most important thing that we're in the room advocating about.
So what changed? What's prompting the WNBA players to demand a new CBA, even though they just negotiated the last one and it went into effect in 2020? So in 5 years, they decided to opt out and try to negotiate for a new deal. And we have to ask the question, why? The WNBA has been known to not be profitable. And the NBA commissioner confirmed in 2018 that they were running a $10 million loss every year. And then last year, the Washington Post came out and said that the WNBA would experience a $50 million loss, which was surprising considering they had rapid growth that year. So why are the players demanding more money even though the league is not profitable? Which is, that's the source of the complaints that they're getting to their protests right now, is why would we pay you more money when you're not making money? You say pay us what you owe us, but it seems like you owe the league money if you're running a loss. Well, actually, a lot has changed. With the new media rights deal that the WNBA signed, worth $2.2 billion, they have a secured $200 million in revenue every year. which would easily make up for the losses they've experienced in previous years. And now there's a lot of interest from billionaires and other wealthy people, other investment groups that want a piece of the WNBA. They want to buy a team, they want to be invested in a team. There's a lot of interest right now. And there's a clear example of Joe Tsai and his purchase of the New York Liberty. He originally bought the team for $10 million and recently sold a percentage of that ownership, which valued the team at over $400 million, which is unimaginable growth.
I want to support women's sports. Any father who has daughters understand that. My daughter plays sports in college. I think it's very, very important that young girls can look up to the role models.
They just had last season the first game ever with ticket revenue over $2 million. So if you consider the fact that 20% of the team's value when he bought it is now being made in one game, it shows you that the league is exponentially growing at this point and that things have changed.
It's fantastic, fantastic. We are so happy that we finally got something in New York.
On top of that, you have other wealthy people like Dave Portnoy offering to purchase a team for $250 million if they're available, showing you that most of the teams are valued above that. So even people who want to get in, they have to bring a lot of money into the equation before they get the offer accepted.
Looking at a league now that by every metric is exploding. Like we're talking about the WNBA. People like me want to follow it, even though there's morons in the front office and players who are like, we don't want people like that. But ticket sales, merch, ratings, you name it, explode, it's quadruple, whatever. They compare to other major sports. So to say that they don't, and their CBA is up, like they had the right to opt out and renegotiate, and people are like they don't deserve more money. How stupid are those people? And you can use like, there's a lot of companies that haven't made money for a long time. Whether a startup, a tech, you still have to pay talent, big talent, hoping you turn the corner and explode. If the league let me buy a team for $250 million, I would. And I think within 10 years, you're quadrupling that. I think teams will be worth at least $1 billion.
So I think there's a reasonable argument to make from the WNBA players that things have changed dramatically in the past 5 years since the CBA was put into effect. So it makes sense that they'd want to renegotiate and make a new agreement so that when they hit those revenue sharing targets, they get a larger piece of the pie. I mean, you can even keep the metrics that are looking out for consistent growth so that you're not just getting screwed over by one good year. You can keep those in and just give them a larger share of the revenue instead of making shared revenue this thing it's not even really revenue. You've deducted so much of the total. By the time it becomes shared revenue, it's such a tiny portion, and even from that tiny portion, they're only getting 25% directly to their salaries. So it would make sense that they'd want a bigger piece of that pie while keeping those revenue targets in place. And it's a win-win for both the team, the league, and the players.
And you're here why?
Just to see the Fever game. Caitlin Clark.
Clark, 22 in number and in age, just led the Fever to the playoffs. She's unquestionably the league's main attraction.
Another thing that has changed with the league is the introduction of Caitlin Clark, and her impact is undeniable. Since she's come into the league, they've had record ticket sales, record TV ratings, record merchandise sales. Everything is bigger than it ever was. I don't think in the history of sports anyone has impacted their league as much as this. Caitlin Clark was the first pick of the 2024 WNBA draft. We just have to look at the league's metrics for that year to see how impactful she has been. WNBA merchandise sales, both online and at their flagship location in New York, were up a combined 601% from 2023. The league also had a single season record with nearly 2 billion video views across all of their social media platforms, more than 4 times the total of the previous season. Now with ticket sales, the WNBA had its highest total attendance in 22 years, 2.3 million, up 48% from the previous season. They also had 154 sellout games, which marked a 242% increase from the previous season. Caitlin Clark's team, the Indiana Fever, set the home attendance record with 340,000 fans in a single season. Now with TV ratings, the WNBA attracted an all-time record with more than 54 million unique viewers across all their networks. A record 22 regular season games averaged at least 1 million viewers. But Caitlin is not the only star. You have Angel Reese, Asia Wilson, a lot of big names that are blowing up in the league and blowing up in the sports world in general. And that's something that didn't exist before. I mean, other than Brittany Griner, I don't think any player was known throughout the NBA world amongst NBA fans.
It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, little man.
I got cuz on that one.
It seems like this generation of players is the first one to break through and get past the limits of the WNBA.
WNBA is in its 27th season and has never experienced a year quite like this.
Now, if I can give some advice to the league, even though I'm certain they will never watch this, it would be to lean into the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese scenario. The beef, the rivalry, whatever you want to call it, that drama, that negativity, or that conflict is clearly drawing the eyes to the league right now. While looking into this, I realized there's a lot of similarities between this rivalry and the rivalry between Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in the 80s. I mean, you have a rivalry between two players of two different races in college that climaxed at the national championship game. One of the players in the rivalry was hitting three-pointers like no one had ever done before. The other player was extremely talented and athletic. The athletic player ended up winning the rivalry in the NCAA championship game. The rivalry then continued into the professional league with a huge racial component. Both rivalries came into their professional leagues at a crucial time in their history, providing a major boost in revenue and viewership. Now only time will tell if the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese rivalry will reach the heights of its predecessor. I would also recommend using social media as much as possible. You can see the success of Angel Reese's podcast, the success of Stud Buds on Twitch, people who are streaming, people who are active on Instagram, active on all social media, are lifting the league up. When people see players that have personality and they have stories that are interesting, they will become interested in that player's game as well. So they'll tune in. The game itself becomes more interesting when the players have personality. I would also recommend recording videos behind the scenes, similar to the UFC vlog series that they have before a major event, or the Hard Knocks series where they follow an NFL team, just showing the fans the behind the scenes of what it's like to be a WNBA player, giving the players more life so people become more invested in the game. If the WNBA leans into its strengths, its growth should continue indefinitely. So after all of this context, I'll leave it to you. Do you think it's reasonable for WNBA players to renegotiate their agreement and push for revenue sharing?